Damn.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 40K Fireside podcast. I'm David Gaylard, and I'm joined by my good friend, Vijay. Together, we discuss 40K and the meta from our perspective, along with events we've recently been to and those that have got coming up. So come on down to the fireside and listen.
Boom, we are back, baby. Episode 58, and I've double-checked the audio. Should be fine this time. It is great to have you back, man. It has been a minute.
Absolutely, Dave. I mean, being in that little WTC lockdown, not being able to talk to yourself, to the Ignite guys, it's been painful. But
Yeah.
I'm glad, it's over. Lists are submitted. It doesn't matter what happens now. Let's share our thoughts with each other and with the listeners.
Yeah, you heard it, guys. So, Team England is going to be giving up all its secrets on the. No, but it's good. Little housekeep warming. I'm in Brussels in a WeWork booth, so my audio is not going to be as good, but we just wanted to get stuff out there because I am so hyped for WTC. I'm even more excited than I was last year, like by a significant margin, I think, which is cool. I guess as a returning player for the second time, you and I started in the same year, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you just as excited, more excited, or what's going on?
There's a bit of experience now, isn't there? I mean, just so I think most people have followed our journey through this, but I'm playing for Team England. Dave is playing for Team New Zealand. We did the same thing last year, and for you guys, it was your very first year going to WTC as a team as well.
Yeah,
England's obviously been doing it for many, many years, so I was a newbie to that whole thing, and I think it was such an eye-opening experience to see 40K played at the highest possible level.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a good challenge. I mean, we did an episode right after WTC where we kind of shared all of our emotions and thoughts about it, which was quite a really, really good episode. So if people want to scroll all the way back 1 year.
Time warp.
It's amazing how much you can learn. And going into this one, now that we know what to expect, I don't know if you're finding this, Dave, but the level of preparation I'm doing is so much more focused and intense this time because I know what I'm aiming for this time, whereas last time I didn't really know it as much as maybe I should have.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You know what's weird is the point that gets me most excited is not even playing the game, weirdly enough. It's just seeing everyone. Like, there's so many, it's the same thing that happened to me at Warhammer World Champs, is like the game is becoming more for me about seeing my friends again, seeing all the French players, the Belgian players, my German friends, all the American guys again. Like, oh man, it's so cool. Like, oh man, I'm really excited to see everyone again. And then I'm sure once we get that all out of the way, like I'll be pumped to play for the team and play my games as well. But yeah, I mean, preparation has been, well, let's just go straight into it, I guess. Do you want me to? How about we talk about the New Zealand prep? Because I was thinking about what to talk about this episode, and I thought, what would be a good way of describing the prep for New Zealand? Because you're right, last year was the first year we played WTC, and that was so much about just getting a team to the event. I think during COVID, I had messaged Steve Joel trying to get the team together for WTC. It is a really big challenge for Team New Zealand, and because of that, I think first time we go, preparation was a bit fast and loose. I would probably say we were about a 5 out of 10 on terms of the preparation. And this time, I think we're probably at about a 7.5 out of 10, which is a big improvement because it's harder and harder to reach that 10 out of 10 prep. I don't know if anyone is ever there really, but to go from a 9 to a 9.5 on your prep is like 5 times the amount of work it is to go from a 5 to a 5.5, right? So huge improvements for us. We've got Finn Decker as the captain this year, and Finn and I have been chatting like almost every day. We voice call and stuff like that, and going over everything. And he's been an absolute gent to work with. I'm super stoked that he's the captain for New Zealand. He's been really an organizing force. He's had people around. They've been doing boot camps. He had a couple of his friends stay over for like a few weeks to play Warhammer.
Nice.
It's really awesome to see. And this year, I look at our lists, I look at our team comp, and I just think, we are so much more focused and on the same level as we were last year. I mean, last year we did great too. We won Best Newcomer, came 15th, which was already so much better than what
pretty awesome
any of us anticipated. So, it's a bit like, oh, we want to do better, but I think I think we've done the prep to do a lot better than we did last year, and I think that we've also got some player improvements as well, and we've got the players that weren't coming this year, weren't selected, coming as coaches. So we've got coaches, which is awesome. So yeah, I can't wait to see the boys again. It's really a special moment, WTC. It's the Mecca. I'm in Brussels right now, actually, ironically. So I'm in the Mecca of 40K as it currently sits. But yeah, it's been quite intense. We were in the collaboration with Iceland and Belgium, which was a huge benefit for us. The time zone made it quite difficult for most of the guys, but still it was really helpful to break us out of our own ecosystem, force us to have those conversations about lists, unify abilities, list comps and stuff like that, where it forces you to have an argument with someone, right, to debate the finer points. And so that's been really big for us. I would say that's probably if I had to say one thing, probably the single biggest thing for our prep improvement. But there's still plenty of ways to go, and the prep is still continuing. I think a lot of people might let the foot off the gas after list submission, but realistically, that's when the prep really starts. You gotta you don't have to focus on your list design so much, but you really got to understand all the matchups.
All the matchups. That's the key thing, isn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. So, Dave, I wanted to go back to a point you made that you guys finished 15th last year.
Yeah.
And the way the WTC is structured is you're split into a number of different categories. And one of the main ones is called the seeds. And the higher your seed, the higher ranked you are within the tournament and the history of the tournament. So it goes from seed 1 to seed 4. And this year you guys started as seed 4 last year. That's a newbie team. Yep. And you've now jumped up to the 2nd seed. And you're alongside some really, really good countries in that 2nd seed. Alongside Belgium,
Canada,
Switzerland, Scotland. You got some great teams there in seed 2. So I think that is going to be a very interesting level for you guys to be at.
Yeah.
How did you find after the success last year it was to kind of recruit your 8 players? There's obviously a massive financial component to coming and traveling all this distance for you guys.
Yeah, so what I would say is I'm actually incredibly proud of New Zealand because we're the furthest traveling country out of any country in the world. It takes about 26 hours to get to Michelin for the guys. And there's a significant financial component to that as well. So, our selection phase actually starts almost just after the WTC with, who's going to be available to play and stuff like that. Which is why one of our main goals as a team actually is to just make sure we can get a team for next year. Just to make sure we can keep the hype going. So, yeah, we find that that's a big part of where we want to get to, and hopefully, I've actually forgotten your question.
Yeah, it's okay. No, I just want to know: have you got kind of like the same players as you did last year?
Yeah. No, so sorry. Yeah, so we've got who is the lineup? Right. Yeah. Let me just let me go through the lineup, of course. Yeah, so I'm going to pull up the matrix. We've got a couple of returning players. But we've also got quite a few new people as well. So we've got myself, who's returning, Alex Taus, who is returning, and John T. Larson, who is returning. We all played last year. But then we've got, I think, 5 new players. So we've got Dan, Finn, Cameron. I'm going to try to do this off the top of my head.
Dave?
Oh, it's tough, mate. It's tough. We've got Michael. And then we've got one person that I'm missing. It's really tough. I'm going to have to go to this spreadsheet.
No worries. You come back to it. That's fine.
It goes to show that we've got a little bit of depth there in New Zealand, which is actually a bit more than I thought. So,
that's awesome.
We've got Hayden as well, sorry. So, that's positive because obviously maybe not everyone can go every year. But I think those are the guys that actually play a bunch in New Zealand as well. So they're actually very regular GT players. We had in terms of preparation, New Zealand had the big ANZ TC, New Zealand Australia team championships. Then they had the New Zealand team championships. So they've played those 2 big team tournaments within the last 5 weeks, I think. So 2 awesome team tournaments for the guys to play, which is great practice in and of itself as well. So that's the lineup. I'm sorry.
No, that's amazing. And I also wanted to dive in just a little bit deeper to that collaboration that you guys did. Because I think that is an absolutely fantastic idea. Because
there's definitely a contrast, obviously, doing.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, there's going to be quite a big difference with us. and yourself. But I can definitely see the benefits of doing that.
Yep.
Combining so many minds together allows you to hit a level of list optimization that's really hard to do unless you have a bigger group working on it. Now, from a Team England perspective, it's quite interesting because we tend to avoid collaboration wherever possible during our kind of list and faction selection phase.
Which is kind of which is like the 3 weeks before list submission lock-in, right?
No, it's even earlier than that.
Oh, wow.
I think it's almost from April.
So that's like after Home Nations, is it? Then
exactly.
It's basically isolated tank, right?
So there was the Pyra team tournament, I think. There was Alpine. There was this Home Nations. And then we had our selection of players. As soon as the selection of players was down, we stopped collaborating outside of the team. Before that, we were playing scrims all across the board, so many different countries, chatting and discussing things. But Team England is a big team. We have as many coaches as we have players.
Yeah, crazy. And how many applicants? I believe it's like...
Yeah, we had 52 applicants when the process started. So even outside of just the team selection group, there's a big group behind for us to gain knowledge from. I mean, there are faction specialists and specialisms that are not specialities that are not within our playing aid, but within England for us to access. So we do have a little bit of that, which we can come in on, which makes collaboration less beneficial for us. But saying that, lists kind of come out, factions come out, and we're obviously going to miss some ideas with this approach. I think everyone's going to miss some ideas. For us, we bank a little bit on the UK singles meta is where most of our players kind of originate from.
Yeah.
And the UK single meta tends to be quite meta leading and quite innovative, meta leading, innovative, and maybe a little bit spammy, I'd say. We push the optimization a little bit further than many of the other countries.
Very damage output orientated as well. It's definitely been one of the motifs for the last years, for sure.
I think so. And, I'm not surprised to see us end up with the majority of our factions within the meta choices of the 8.
Wait, I'm going to stop you right there, though. Before we get into what we've taken and what the meta was, let's rewind just a little bit.
Yeah,
how was the prep? Because you've done the prep last year, and that was already a ton of effort. And just for the guys out there that don't know, we've got Boris Michev and Chris Radford as new starters for Team England that are obviously part of Ignite as well. That also did the prep as well. So how is that? What if I was like a 5 out of 10 going up to 7.5 for New Zealand? What was last year, and where are you guys at now? Do you think?
So as an overall team, last year we had a massive issue where about half the team was preparing very hard and half the team had a lot of stuff going on, so they weren't able to do it as much. A big part of selection this year was to try and get a playing 8 that would be able to prepare to a high level all the way through. So I'd say there's probably a drastic difference this year compared to last year, because we now have it not as just a small group working on ideas, but we have a big group working on ideas.
Yeah.
And the quantity of time put in is high as well. So I'd say we probably went, in my opinion, we were probably at about 5.5 out of 10, I'd say, last year. And we've gone up to maybe an 8 out of 10 this year in terms of our prep.
Cool.
A big part of last year was our faction selections were left super late. Super late. And we were making faction switches within the last week before list submission. And it wasn't just one. One is okay. But we were making 3 or 4 players switching factions within the last few days, which is disastrous. You're always going to miss some level of quality in your lists if you do that.
Yeah. And this isn't a meta. This isn't a meta where it's a lot more hits and misses. In the meta in the moment, you could swap a little bit and it's still kind of, it's plus or minus 1 or 2%, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas in this meta, we have like 15 factions which are viable in some kind of way. Last time it was, maybe we had 10 factions which were viable.
Yeah. And if you missed something, you really missed something.
So, this year we had people kind of zone into factions quicker. Rather than switch around, which I think has made a huge difference to the quality of our lists that come through at the end. I feel more confident.
Out of curiosity, how long ago did people lock in what factions they were playing? And I guess prior to list submission, how early did you know what the 8-man roster was going to be?
So the So the problem was we had the balanced slate. I think the
Yeah.
balanced data slate coming in the middle of the preparation phase was actually a big drawback for
Wait,
us
so
as a
did you
team.
have the 8-man factions locked in before the balanced data slate?
If we yeah, absolutely. If we
Wow,
didn't have the balanced slate, we would have been set to go.
that's
And so,
crazy.
yeah, so we were really ahead of it with that. We managed to retain most of our factions, but we had to make switches
Yeah.
following the balanced data slate to match up.
Wow.
But actually, interestingly, the meta doesn't change that much off the balanced slate in terms of faction choices, if you think about it. There's maybe one or two things that drop off.
Yeah.
But there are one or two things which kind of sub in quite
Yeah, I mean,
easily
it
into
gets it.
those
Yeah,
spaces.
I understand from a faction perspective, but obviously the game itself changes
Correct.
drastically, which is the
Yeah.
big part. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think, yeah, from a faction perspective, there's not much in it. If you had like 20 or 30 reps in a faction,
Yeah.
and it was one of these factions that didn't change significantly in the meta, let's take like Leagues of Votan, for example. Um, they didn't change much in terms of their rules. It's just the mission format changed around them. If you had 20 reps into Leagues of Votan, you're going to be much better playing that than an improved Tyranids list, for example. That was our
Yeah.
thinking. Rather than start all over again, you got the
Yeah.
faction speciality. Let's stick to it.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting one though, isn't it?
Mm,
Because I guess one of the things that I would think when I think Team England was like the player quality is very high that people could pick things up, right?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. But
which
there's
just
also
goes to show that maybe that's, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong,
mm,
but maybe that's still not a good idea, even with the amount of like practice you could put in, right?
mhm. Yeah, I think if you have a faction specialist on a faction coming out of the balance slate in one of these other factions, like let's say you had an admech specialist in your eight, that is such an incredible boon to be able to get that person onto it because you know they have the experience on it.
Yeah,
And if you have two people on a faction, let's say you have two Tyranid players, really good Tyranid players in your eight, who can bounce ideas off each other and get list optimization done really quickly,
yeah,
this is the meta where they will really shine through.
yeah,
But the game is so incredibly balanced, Dave, that
mm,
it's insane how important faction expertise and experience is,
yeah.
loads of reps compared to anything else.
That's where you
Marginal
get,
differences
yeah,
in faction strength don't matter as much.
for sure. And I think I said the same thing to Finn. I think after list submission, I said the most important thing is to get reps, understand matchups, because that's where you get the percentages these days.
That's it.
Is that, and that's where all the percentages are. So, I mean, yeah, obviously, if you pick an absolute, if you pick something that turns out to be an absolute flop, like double monoliths or something like that, yeah, okay, that's lesson learned, right? But between Tyranids or Votan or maybe you're playing, Dark Angels, Blood Angels,
Mhm,
might be a good example there, or something else, right?
mhm.
It's really like, are you comfortable? Can you play in situations and adapt because you know your army so well in situations where you actually haven't played the game before? 100% agree. So yeah, it's a really interesting philosophy for Team England. The collaboration was really big for us, and I know a lot of other big teams do collaborate as well. So I think England is probably the only team that does that methodology, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know how much Poland do it. I don't know if you know the
Yeah,
collaboration. I
they
mean,
obviously have the Pyra Cup. I don't know
after
for
that, isn't
example.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but I suspect that they do work with the team actually, even
Yeah.
even Poland. But I mean, who knows? Yeah,
It'll be interesting. I think, if there wasn't so much rivalry within the UK,
yeah.
I think it would be great for us to collaborate and work with like Wales or Scotland or something like that.
Oh, right.
I think that would be really cool. But I just think, you can't work Seed One teams against each other, with each other.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
gonna. It's actually a big detriment, and I'll explain this bit to you.
Okay, because I know for a fact that there are two Seed One teams that collaborate, but I won't say until after WTC.
I will explain this to you because there is a perfect example of which you are relevant as well, Dave.
Hmm?
Because there is a faction called Thousand Suns, which
Oh,
is seen in 33 out of 40 teams, which is almost
what are those
every
other
single
seven
team.
doing?
What are the other seven doing? But still, my point is that the vast majority of those Thousand Suns lists are very similar. But there's a small handful of them which are just a little bit different. There are four teams with slightly different ones, very innovative, completely different, and plays in a totally different way using three Mutilate Vortex beasts.
Mhm.
Now, three of those teams sit in C2, I think, C2 and 1, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you practice against one of those, you practice for all four of them.
Oh,
And
this
I
is a good point.
and
Yeah, this
I
is a good point.
think if there are 2 innovative lists within Seed 1 that 2 teams are taking, you get bonus points. If that's Poland and USA, perfect. I'm going to do two birds with one stone right there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I can appreciate that angle. I can appreciate that angle. So it says if you're isolated and then 2 seed or very high seed teams collaborate, then you could double up your practice against them.
Mhm.
It's a really good point. I believe it is. Is it Sweden that has the double Forge Fiend?
Yes, Canada.
Canada has the double Forge Fiend. I don't think Canada are seed 1 though.
No, they're not. Sweden has the triple mutilate vortex beast as well.
I believe so. Yeah, we'll have to.
They're part of the gang. Oh no. Yeah.
I don't know if they. I remember it was one army that have it. Yeah, they've got 1 Forge Fiend. Maybe it's not them. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the who knows? It's the age old thing, isn't it? You know. The reverse argument to that is, of course, well, you gain a lot, and the chances that you hit another team of that caliber, you know, and not obviously the higher up you go is more likely. But
you have gained a lot because of those 4 teams, arguably, and you know it's still to be tested. But I think that potentially you have a stronger variant of T-Suns in your build.
Could be a good edge.
Could be a good edge. So even if we can practice against all 4 of you in one go, you guys already know what the normal T-Suns list does. So win-win maybe.
I'm just on the outside with no Forge Fiends, so you really have to pray to see.
Well, I'm describing the list based on the mutilate vortex.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think T-Sun's list can now be described on if they are 0, 1, 2, or 3 mutilate vortex beasts, and the rest of the list almost writes itself.
2 is definitely incorrect. I'm going to tell you that now.
Do you think so? Is that
it's
your
either
take?
1 or 3.
Oh, that's the spicy take, man.
Yeah.
Because I also thought 2 was incorrect. Because I think it's so easy to go from 2 to 3.
Yes, well, it's the mutilate. Okay, let's get into that in a bit because you know.
I want to know. I want to the mutilate chat.
Okay, we can jump into it now. So, because I guess it's part of the preparation, right? You know what? Here's the biggest lesson that I learned that I'm happy that I implemented.
Mm-hmm.
So last year I played Death Watch when there were 2 stronger factions to play: Genestealer Cult and Wraith Knights. Now, my role on the team is to be the heaviest hitter and play the best 40k that I can possibly play in 4 hours and absolutely annihilate people. If you're playing against New Zealand, just a heads up, that's what I'm going to try and do. I don't think it's a secret, right? So I was practicing Tyranids for the longest time. When the balanced data slate came out, I only played Tyranids because I really like Tyranids, and obviously I was practicing Crush the Stampede. So that's what I was playing a lot of, man. And then I chatted with a couple of people, and this is where the collaboration was really good because there was a couple of active Tyranids players in there I could bounce ideas off. And there were some other people globally that I knew that I could talk with privately and do stuff with. And then I played Synaptic, Nexus and stuff like that. And whenever I played Tyranids, I would win, but I wouldn't win to the degree where I could actually convince myself wholeheartedly that this is the army I should be playing. Mm-hmm. And so in the back of my mind, I knew, look, David, your role demands an army of higher caliber than this. It was either going to be Eldari or Thousand Suns, I think. We already had a Marine player, Finn. So I wasn't going to be taking that. And so I was like, look, you know what? I need to stop fucking around. I'm going to play T-Suns. And I just started cakewalking people as soon as I saw it. It was kind of brutal, but yeah, when I saw, so I'm really happy in that point of preparation where I just made the decision. Look, just play the army that you need to be playing for the role. So super happy with that. But the T-Suns balanced data slate. As soon as this balanced data slate hit, I could not believe the light-handed touch that Thousand Suns received. Mm-hmm. I was just honestly gobsmacked. I read the Kabbalistic ritual changes, and I thought, so what? You can't do
minor, very minor.
The one in every 2 games where you do the triple move, whatever. It's like, okay, well, you're not doing the 110% play. You're just doing the 85% play every single turn. Like, it's not a huge deal. And then I saw the Mutilith Beast go down, and I was like, what? Like, okay, seems ridiculous. And I thought about what would Manny Chima say? What would Manny say? And I was like, I bet Manny would probably play 3 of these. And so I tried to channel that a little bit. But
Do
But
you want to know something funny before you do the next point?
what?
Manny told me not to run any Mutual Vortex Beast. Just to put it out there. I was on the edge of even taking one.
Oh man.
Oh,
Yeah. how I was wrong. So I, the Mutalith Beast is like the thing the thing about it is that when people play with it, they play it as what they play one Mutalith Beast, and that's not the way to play them. They play it as an amplifying piece to extend the range of your rituals, right? And maybe to like do some countercharging and stuff like that. Well, that's one way to play it. Or you could just get two more. You could solve a big problem that Thousand Suns have. Now, the way to beat these traditional Thousand Suns lists, in my opinion, is to play very standoffish, not engage, and then you'll get a very tight game. Not a lot of people know that. And that's primarily because Thousand Suns, they really struggle at holding primary pressure. But if you have multiple Mutalith Beasts, it allows you to create primary pressure such that your opponent has to begin with engaging into you. Then, as soon as they engage into you, you absolutely clobber them with your army. So that's one of the really big strengths of it. They're also amazing into Aldari as well.
That's actually incredible game theory because, there's one person that we all know, the Liam VSL style of playing is exactly what you've described. I mean, Thousand Suns already have a piece in Magnus, but instead of throwing away Magnus for that role, you're now throwing away Mutalith Vortex Beast, and you've got two more as a backup for the counterplay. So you can rinse and repeat that play.
Yeah, in the OC4, you can flame people. They can play them from reserve, temporal surge them. Their gun is actually pretty sick. And look, 5 up, 5 up, 13 wounds, toughness 10. Fuck you might kill it.
It's pushed.
You might not.
Yeah, with two savory rolls, it's very, very sweet. So,
and they play kind of nice on the WTC terrain because they have these really big arms and tentacles. And with the new pivot rule, Magnus just got like insanely better with the new pivot rule. It was absolutely bonkers. I thought for the longest time you still had to pay 2 inches to rotate him.
Damn!
Someone was like, "Dude, he rotates for free."
So good, man. It's crazy.
God, crazy. So I'm loving them. I'm really happy with that prep. I'm really, really happy with the. I decided I want to come to the tournament with the best version of the list. I'm not sure if I did it, but I'm very happy with the list overall.
I've been told by so many people not to say this because it's going to be a disaster, long-term disaster. But
Okay.
I think, and my opinion, I've shared it in many places, I think you have the best T-Suns list in the WTC. Personally.
I appreciate that.
And I regret missing out on some of the things you did there because I just didn't see that line of thinking. Yeah. I saw someone going down some of the other triple Mutalith Vortex Beast builds. I saw that happening. I kind of had that list kind of there.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, not for me, not good. But your one has everything that mine does, plus the triple Mutalith Vortex.
19 Cabal, perfect sweet spot. You can double Doom Bolt, Temporal Surge. If I couldn't play 19 Cabal, I'd put Araman back in. That was the break point for me, and I would drop the crystal. But I could just fit that in the end of it. You got the spawn in there. Dropping Araman was a huge, last minute working around that in the last couple of days. I just found that Araman was just oftentimes just one Doom Bolt throughout the whole game. Yeah. And I was just like, well,
Araman has the advantage of letting you do your combination that you're after of Cabal rituals for 2 turns rather than one if you were to lose an asset. So there's advantages and disadvantages.
Or a big go turn, for example. Definitely really, really good at that. Or, a go turn where you can double Doom Bolt Surge minus save or something like that as well.
I think I'm the only one. No, there's a couple of other players who've played on the breakpoint of 23, which is a common breakpoint. 21, 23, and then you've got 19 is the lowest I would go with Cabal points.
Exactly, yeah. You're playing a lot more of the traditional list, I would say, right? With the standard. New 1 MVB kind of built in, right?
Yeah, it's basically exactly the same, but there's a Mutalith Vortex Beast added in.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Forge Fiends are interesting as well, of course. I just... the chance of just rocking it up, hitting, rolling 4 shots, hitting with 3, winning with 2,
It's not the one. The thing which does the single highest output of damage is the Infernal Master Rubric Marines.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I personally, I would never start a list without those 3 units for T-Suns. because I think that's where you're high. Like, when people say they do unlimited damage in T-Suns, it's because of
Yeah.
those units that they do
Yeah.
unlimited damage.
And hey, I got to play as much indirect as possible, right? So, oh, you're hiding behind that? Yeah, I've got 3 Infernal Masters, mate. Like, that's it.
Yeah, so really cool list design, and
Thanks, man.
I'm really excited to see, especially how you do, Dave. I wish you
Hopefully.
so much success. I can't say the same for Team USA, but I wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's
So
been
what
fun
was your
so far.
lineup? What did you guys
Oh, yeah.
do in the end?
The New Zealand lineup. Oh, can I say? We actually we had 2 faction swaps the weekend on list submission, actually.
Oh, okay, last second, yeah.
Yeah, last second, yeah. So we've got top from the top. Yeah, obviously I'm playing Thousand Suns. We have Blood Angels. We were testing Dark Angels for a
Oh,
bit.
you went Blood Angels, yes.
Yes, yeah. It's got 3 transports though, and a Mephiston, so it's a little bit more rounded than I think Manny's build, which is a brilliant build, of course. And it can probably create a larger differential. Pros and cons to all of them, We were kind of unsure about how much melee component there was going to be in the meta. So having that melee control is always important. I've got World Eaters, Alex Taus, who's, been playing World Eaters for a long time. We were close to taking Chaos Knights for him. Chaos Knights, Sweden takes Chaos Knights. I know Netherlands were going to take it potentially. It's an interesting one. I'm keen to see how Chaos Knights do. We've got Necrons with the old double monolith and Silent King.
Beautiful.
So,
and Silent King. Oh,
and the Silent King.
lovely.
Right? Yeah.
Spicy tech.
Yeah. So John T has played that list for a long time, and he was potentially going to move on to Tau, but we wanted to have a little bit of a curveball, higher differential, a very stressful army to play against. I'll tell you right now. That is not an easy army to play against, and if you do make mistakes, it can really punish you. Yep. So that's that part. We've got Tyranids with Synaptic Nexus, got the Rupture Cannon in there.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just solid. I think Tyranids. I am very surprised that England didn't take Tyranids. I think Tyranids. If anyone didn't take them, I'm very surprised. You could see Innes Wilson, for example, is playing Tyranids, and he's one of the 20-0 pushers for Scotland, which goes to show you the strength that he puts in that faction. We've got Eldari playing Liam VSL's list with Dan, and we got Sisters, of course, Bringers of Flame. Like everyone's, playing.
99%.
Once you've seen one list, Bringers of Flame, you've kind of just seen them all, right? Like they're all the same. 3 Castigators, lots of Dominions, Innolators, and then stuff like that. And not Celestine, but the Seraphim, yeah, exactly, yeah. And I'm probably missing 1 or 2 here. We've got Grey Knights, of course. I thought the Grey Knight list innovation was really fascinating. Where people were going to go with that. I really like the Team England list with Chris. That's a huge curveball. One of the weirdest lists in the tournament, I would actually argue. And then we've got, am I missing something? T-Suns, Necrons, World Eaters, Grey Knights, Sisters, and Tyranids. Yeah, so a very standard lineup, I would say.
Yeah, you're in the top of the meta, like the most commonly picked ones.
Yeah, exactly. We've got 7 out of 8 super commons, and then Necrons with the all-in monolith is a little bit less common. But the monolith, surprisingly, Necrons were surprisingly popular.
They were the fifth most popular faction.
Crazy, right? And the monolith was pretty popular inside that.
It was.
I actually think the Awakened Dynasty build is a great defender role build, and I think teams probably have overlooked that build for the Awakened Dynasty as well. I still think that's super viable. It's really close, pushes close games. So that's another way you could have gone with Necrons. That's really interesting. Yeah.
What Poland went with, isn't it? Nice.
Yeah, and I think a couple of other teams went with Awakened Dynasty as well. Yeah. What about England? Are you guys happy with where you landed?
Yeah, I mean, we also ended up with the top 4 most popular factions. We have Manny Chima playing the Blood Angels. Gone for a brilliant list, really skewed, really nice. Going to suit him a lot, I think.
A lot of stuff.
Yep. We've got me on the second most popular faction, which is the Thousand Suns. Very standard Thousand Suns list, just with a Mutant Vortex Beast. We've got Bringers of Flame with Chris Kinnair, using the Sisters of Battle. And then we've also got Chu on our captain, Tony Chu. He's on the Eldari for us.
He's played there for a long time.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm all 3 of the factions I play are in our 8, which is great. So I can help out a lot with the list design and practice.
Very valuable aspect.
Yeah, we've got Grey Knights as well with Chris Radford has jumped in on that. Really, he's played that for a long time now. Like almost from as soon as he got selected for the team, he's been playing Grey Knights. So he's gone through every single build. All these builds I've looked through, in the list, he's played all of them. So
Yeah,
he's
that's
ended
cool.
up with the one that suits him the most.
I'm really excited to see how Chris does, to be honest with you. I think he's got such a unique build. One of the most unique builds out there, I think. I don't think there's a single other person playing anything close to that, right?
Yeah. Every single tool has been picked just for the way he wants to play the game and his role within our team. So he's, I'm really excited for Chris as well. I think he's going to have a brilliant first WTC.
For sure.
We've got our other Ignite teammate, Boris Michev. We've got him in on the CSM, and kind of interesting. He's also gone super unique here. That's a flex point because I thought pack-bound CSM would be a little more popular than it was, but he's the only one in the entire WTC.
I see.
He's literally the only one.
There's another seed one. I think it's France are playing ACDCs.
Yeah, so France and us have very similar lists. But yeah, Matt Bonnet in that list is playing, in that team is playing the CSM instead of Sisters. Interestingly, they have no Sisters, so they have CSM. And he's playing it in Renegade Raiders rather than Packbound.
Packbound is the original detachment?
It's the original one, yeah.
It's a good one.
It is a good one, but Boris is the only one with it. So Boris is like, "What the hell? What's going on? What have I done?"
There's only like 2 people playing that list, so you can't judge too much.
Yeah, so Boris is on that great list again,
and I heard Boris is using Manny's old Accursed Cultist models, right?
Yeah, no chance. Oh my god, can you imagine?
Boris is probably listening to this furiously painting his models.
So for people who don't know, Boris has won best overall at the Warhammer Worlds and also the Warhammer event, GW event
Fest,
in UK. So he's an insane hobbyist. So
yes, he's a machine.
And then we have the Leagues of Votann is our last as our number 8 there.
Yep. Pretty popular as well, the leagues, right? I think a lot of
not too bad. There's 14 of them, so 1/3 of the teams basically has the Leagues of Votann list. I think.
You forgot one as well.
Oh, am I missing one? Who have I got?
My favorite faction, the 18 Bulgrin list.
Oh, Nassim! Yeah, you'll hear him before you see him. That is. I mean, it's interesting. I think Skark has ended up on a very similar list as well.
Oh, Skark is playing CSM.
Oh, really? Oh, yes.
There is another Seed 1 team playing Guard as well.
Yeah, I saw it somewhere else. Someone else with the 18 Bulgrin. It might be France, actually, interestingly.
Belgium, Gaylard is playing 18 Bulgrin as well, I think.
Yeah, so Nassim's been grinding that out since the start of our prep as well. So he has more reps than anyone else in our team, I think.
I believe that.
Yeah. So Nassim is locked in, and I think he's got many more reps to go before the event. So I'm looking forward to see what he does.
Have you got anyone that's not on a faction that they're used to? Doesn't seem like it, right?
Yeah, it's the Leagues of Votann is our one at the end because Alex Harrison had to make the switch off of Ironstorm, which is the one that he'd been playing for so long, because the balanced slate hit it, and also we really wanted to get the Blood Angels into our 8.
Of course, yeah, because if you play Ironstorm, you sacrifice the Blood Angels or Dark Angels, and actually, funny enough, Austria in our Seed 1 pool have Ironstorm, which is
what the hell?
They've also got demons, so and Drukhari. It's crazy. That's a good segue, Brad. Is there anything you want to talk about, like on the list? Where you guys landed? Are you happy with it? Is there anything that you feel like you really missed out on, being the isolationist? I
mean, I would say that I don't think we have picked the 8 absolute strongest factions in the game. And I don't think you need to in this WTC.
I don't think so either, yeah.
I don't think, like, for example, the Leagues of Votann, in my opinion, they probably wouldn't be in the top 8. I would put Tyranids 100% in the top 8.
Yep.
I actually personally wouldn't put Necrons in the top 8, despite them being really popular.
Yep.
But
CSM,
yeah,
you could argue it.
Exactly. I'm not sure they're there. Is there an argument that pure Drukhari is better than Eldari? There's loads of stuff going on here. And I think it doesn't matter for this particular event. The meta is super balanced. We're not playing singles. And WTC is about finding players for roles within your team. And some factions will do that differently, even if they're not the most powerful faction in the 8. So I'd say the answer to your question is yes, I'm happy with the 8 factions that we selected. And the 8 players we've got playing those factions. I think we come out of this with a good selection of lists. Like, I don't know if I would not go as far as saying we have the best 8 factions or 8 lists, but we certainly have a good enough one to compete, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? The faction expertise is super important because your matrix estimation is going to be that much more accurate having those players on those lists, which is probably more valuable than having a Tyranids or is it Votan, sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people might struggle into that because you're not playing those, maybe one that is super popular as well, right?
Exactly.
So
What
yeah,
about you, Dave? Where are you at with it?
yeah, just super happy all around. Yeah, maybe Necrons, but there's a player availability thing there instead of a different, maybe different pusher faction. Yeah, I mean, maybe you could argue Dark Angels instead of Blood Angels, but once again, Finn did play that, just didn't suit his play style, didn't like it, and at the end of the day, that's great, man.
That's it. Yeah.
That's all you can ask from someone, I guess, from my perspective, in terms of like, I know so many things, and I know what's good and popular, and I know kind of what's coming up and stuff like that. All I can do is ask ask the players, hey, look, do you mind trying this, or something like that? And if they come back and say, hey, look, I really didn't enjoy it, I was struggling with this part, cool, man, it's all good. We'd rather have you on something you enjoy and you can feel comfortable with and play well and really specialize in as well, right? And who knows, Blood Angels could be better than Dark Angels. Yeah, I mean, England's obviously taking Blood Angels there as well, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I'm going to put my money down and say Blood Angels are better than Dark Angels.
Really?
Not against each other. Not against each other. But I think they are. And we've got to see after this WTC because I think there's only 2 Seed 1 teams with Blood Angels, which blew my mind as soon as I read the lists. But obviously people have been playing very different Blood Angels lists here. So it's going to be really interesting to see what actually comes out of this WTC. Now, saying that, when we think of Dark Angels, who's the first person that comes to mind? Is Mr. John Lennon. And
of course, yeah.
Mr. John Lennon is literally going to do well no matter what faction he's on. And now he's playing something that probably absolutely suits him. So I'm expecting him to absolutely lead the way. But then you have Manny Chima on the Blood Angels. So the competition between those two and seeing who has the bigger influence of their team is going to be great, I think, to watch. For sure.
That's a good segue. Are there any players aside from the 2 that you just mentioned that you think that's going to be an interesting player to see how they run, given the kind of player faction combo? I've got one in mind. I don't mind starting. If
Go on, do it.
I think Sean Naden's.
I was going to say Sean. Oh, you got me.
I think that's an interesting. I think this is a great discussion point, and let's go into it afterwards. But yeah, I think Sean Naden. Obviously, I think he had a great tournament last year with Tyranids. I remember that was a bit of a GSC trap list. He's always been a very good list writer, and I think it's fascinating to see how he'll do as not only the player but also the captain as well. So performing at that level will be super interesting. Obviously America's lists are, in terms of, if you think about the 8 lists they brought, are probably the wildest out of any team, I think.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, not only are their lists different on all the factions they're playing, but their factions that they are playing are different. I don't think there's many Seed 1 teams that are playing World Eaters, so you can consider World Eaters in a Seed 1 lineup. Green Tide.
Fascinating.
Crazy, right? So now they've stolen your player. Who do you think, that'd be an interesting to see how they line up against maybe the other lists, for example?
Oh yeah. Okay, so I think I really want to see. I want to see so I'm going to pick one of the America guys, definitely. Cool. I want to see how America's Kauyon list, the Tau list.
Andrew Gonyo.
Yeah, Gonyo. He's got obviously the Tiger Sharks are out of action because in WTC, once you come in from strat reserves, you can't activate because they're bigger than 6 inches.
Oh shit! Did that? Oh fuck! Did Canada miss that part?
Yeah, Canada have one. I don't know. I don't know what's no one else has one. It's only Canada, so I don't know. Maybe it's an active choice. To be fair, they're still good. It's just
of course, a
little funky if you can't shoot them the turn they come in.
They're really good in Kauyon, I imagine.
So he's got a non-Tiger Shark Kauyon list.
Yeah.
And I'm so curious to see how that does, because if you actually look, about 50% of the teams maybe have Tau. Mm-hmm. And I think the Tau question is going to be the big one that's going to come out of this.
Super interesting faction, isn't it? I think when Brian was playing it for us, and the early Tau days, with Montcar, very different role potentially here. And Gonyo has been playing Tau for a long time. He is a long time Tau player, and his army's gorgeous as well. I played him at Warhammer World Champs. Had a great game. Andrew's one of my favorite players, actually. So it'll be really cool to see how he does. I think Tau is. I got a sneaking suspicion that it's not going to do as well as people think it's going to do.
I agree with you. I think
I'm not convinced.
Phenomenally bad, personally. Phenomenally bad. That's why I picked it.
The gauntlet has been thrown down. Phenomenally done.
Oh no, I'd love to get a game into him, but and meet the guy. But it's not just him. There are a lot of people with Tau, so someone is wrong here.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Well, so I thought what it's difficult to say this without knowing whether or not he is going to do well. But I just want to talk about Sean Naden's list for a bit because
interesting.
it really nails home the point of some things are super popular and then they go on a down trajectory, right? And then you kind of forget about them for a while, and then someone just goes, I think that's probably, is the Wraith Knight like that? I'm actually surprised no one's playing a Wraith Knight. And
you're right.
It's probably not. Who knows, right? But the Incarn, I think he might be the only one playing the Incarn. And is it good? I don't know. It's tough because obviously the Incarn was very strong previously. Yeah. And the meta has obviously come down. The ceiling's fallen significantly. Mm-hmm. So is it good? He's not playing any Dark Elder component. They're not playing Dark Elder in their lineup. So the Way Leaper for +1 CP there is obviously a huge reason why you play that, because he has to be a Warlord to get the CP. And if you have Riverrain, you can't get him as a Warlord. So really fascinating. It's a really good reminder. I think if you're trying to innovate, it's a really good reminder to always look back. Try and look back and think, was this, this unit that was really good, Yeah, maybe I should just put it on the table, right? Is this still really good?
Yeah, I actually think Sean Naden's list is deceptively good.
Yes,
I've heard a lot of people look at it and be like, "What?" But that's just a Sean Naden list. But when you actually look at all the roles and how everything synergizes within that list, there's a play for everything. There's not many resources. You don't have much leeway in your play, but there is a play for everything, and it has some tools which Eldar lists don't naturally have. You might look at Void Weavers and be like, "Why are they so expensive?"
Yeah,
they have the ability to trigger Battle Shock. You have Fire and Fade. You have all these little rules that combine. And you have the Yunkan popping up in a space which normally you wouldn't be able to access. I think it's an extremely fascinating list. And I personally wouldn't be surprised if he actually does quite well in the Team America setup with that list. And I think it's going to come down to the other teams that are likely to play and compete against America to actually put that list on the board and look into the little tricks. Everyone has an Eldar specialist, so... They should get that on the board, I think.
Yeah, and at the same time, Lucas Troll, going back to playing stuff that's a little bit off meta, Lucas Troll are playing Green Tide. I believe it's Lucas, right?
Lucas, yeah.
It's going to be, I'm going to say it now, it's going to be tough to get games into a player of Lucas's caliber on that list. It's going to be tough. And actually in teams, give me that on T-Suns all day, baby, but but in teams, it can actually be sometimes a hindrance if you don't have an accurate player playing it to that caliber. And I think Green Tide is actually one of those lists where it does function like that. It's very hard to get the player to actually give you an accurate representation of how they might play it. Sean Naden's list, I think, is like that, for example, as well. The 2 Forge Fiend, 3 MVB list is, I think, like that as well, right? It's interesting. The Grey Knights list that Chris is playing, very similar as well, right? Manny Chima's list, similar as well, right? You don't know how it's necessarily going to play on the board, and you don't know what matchups they're looking for what reasons. And that's a big part, I think, of it, coming down to the Seed 1. If I was in the Seed 1 team, maybe I will be next year. I would be trying to figure out these lists, why they took them, what matchups they're looking for, and what key elements are they trying to pull throughout the game that actually make sense, Why are you playing Sangard? Why are you playing the 10-man Vanvets? Why is he playing the Incarn? What, how does it all come together? Green Tide, what matchups are they looking for? I'm sure they got some bad ones, sure, but they've probably got some good ones, and they've probably got some that are draw range that you think are bad. So super tough, man. WTC, it's going to be
it's going to be so good.
So good. Do you know that there are 500 people in the singles event?
Oh, huge.
500 people.
That's a lot. Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, WTC is massive, isn't it? And we've got so many new teams now. There's 10 pods, so 40 teams now. It's big.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the new teams. I've been watching the Contact Lost captains interviews.
Oh,
There
yes,
was one.
me too.
There was one with Tony Chu there speaking well, and the guy from I think it might be
South Korea, wasn't it?
from South Korea. Yes.
Mm.
So I'm super excited to see how those teams do, man. Being able to be a part of the enterprise team, the foundational team to represent your nation, I think is a special thing in and of itself. If you're the first part of the first time, and just knowing that you're a part of that, which is going to become something bigger, is really awesome there, I think, as well. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see a lot of the new teams. Yeah,
Definitely, me too.
Speaking
I think. Sorry, yes, Dave.
No. What I was going to say is from it's a lot different playing as a seed 4 versus playing as a seed 2 as well in the pods as well. England obviously, being a top seed 1 team, you're basically expected to crush more or less everyone in your pod. But the seed 2 team is really tough. I was watching the pod draw obviously live, right, with all our friends, and I was just praying. I was absolutely praying to hit a seed 1 team that we could, with no disrespect, potentially draw or win against. And I had 3 teams, Australia and Netherlands and Austria, potentially Spain in there, maybe Spain over Australia. Those 3 teams I was hoping to hit because I thought, look, these are the teams where we've got a chance. And we hit Austria, and we've got Mexico and Israel in our pod as well. So I'm super happy with the way our pod worked out. And Austria, you can hear it right here, mate.
Oh,
he's coming for you.
He's coming for you. Oh.
Amazing. Coming for you, mate. But yeah, it's super exciting. I'm hoping we can do better than last year at a minimum, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that we're going to be doing substantially better as well.
Come on, Dave. You got this. I can see you being better than a number of seed 1 teams here. So it's all going to come down to those last little bits of prep and how everyone pushes through. That's going to make the difference, I think, this year.
For sure.
I
interrupted you. What did you want to go?
I was just going to think, because we obviously need to do a little bit more coverage on the WTC. Just coming into it, our next episode is probably going to be talking about some of lists are officially coming out next Monday.
Yep.
So we should, in the next few days, we should be able to get an episode out where we go through some of like the lists we think are really interesting or really good.
Yep.
And I think maybe one more before WTC goes off. I would love to do a faction tier list with you, Dave, because the Fireside ones are always spicy. Yeah, I think we could do a singles one, mate. Singles team, an overall one.
Yeah. Well, we've also got the UKTC new terrain as well. So I was going to invite Lewis to the podcast to talk about UKTC, who recently did well at a GT with the Tiger Shark with Tau.
Nice.
So we've got that as well, and then we've got LGT coming up after WTC, and you guys can believe that Ignite is going to be coming hard.
I think so.
So yes, let us know if you're still listening. Let us know what you think you would like us to cover for WTC. We can always ask players. Between Vik and I, we know basically everyone. And of course, if you're at the WTC, do come and say hi to us. Vik and I are obviously, super nice, approachable people, so we really love to hear the feedback as well. But we're going to be covering some good lists. So maybe we'll cover the top 10 lists 10 list player combinations, whatever it is, that we think are kind of hot takes, can do well at the tournament, or maybe are going to be flops. Maybe we should include. So just a heads up, if you've got a weird list, we're going to call you out. You're a flop. Andrew Gonyo, that's you.
Oh, no. He's got called out twice in one episode.
And then I think we should definitely do a tier list for teams as well. I think that, and I've seen some tier lists, and they've been a bit fat. They've been a bit wide. So we're gonna try and push it to make sure there's a few more tiers rather than just lumping everything in one.
This one's slightly better than this one. Needs to be upper tier.
There we go. Oh, it's good to be back. It's WTC embargo, as we've all joked about it. But we had a really special moment in Ignite where our chat's been obviously really quiet, but we all just said, look, after list submission at 11 p.m., let's just all share our lists. And we everyone posted the list.
All did, didn't we?
Everyone was like, oh, you can't believe you took this and stuff. So it was a bit of a family reunion in a lot of ways. So it was really cool to see. And I can't wait for the team to get back together, obviously, after WTC, get back to taking skulls.
That's it. Absolutely. I hope everyone enjoyed 40K Fireside. Number 58, isn't it, Dave? And
58.
We will catch you next time, and make sure to leave a comment. Take care,
There we
guys.
go. See you guys.